Fair warning, I'm going to be talking about some very good running backs in this video. I don't necessarily think that they're bad, but I think that they're set up to fail based off their situations. Now, before we get into them, let's talk about who we had as sell-high candidates last week. Our number one sell-high candidate was Xavier Worthy. Obviously, Worthy flops in week 2, but to be honest with you, now that we have the Hollywood news that he's out rest of season, now that Worthy has seen his price cool off just a bit, plus Pacheco gets injured, so the Chiefs are going to throw the ball a little bit more. I'm actually kind of flipping to Xavier Worthy may be a buy, but that's because the situation has dramatically changed coming off a bad week. I included Worthy on the buy low list. I'm not going to be flipping like that very, very often. Just when their situation dramatically changes, I think you can. I'm going over to 2. Jerome Ford was a sell high candidate for us last week. I can't really say that's the case this week because we already saw Foreman come in. Ford has already seen his value absolutely crater, so there's not really a point of trying to sell him. Stephon Diggs was a sell-high candidate for us last week. You see the Nico Collins blow-up game. You see Diggs come back down to earth. So, yeah, I don't think you can really sell Stephon Diggs highly anymore. Jaden Reed was that sell-high guy for us last week, just under the assumption that you were going to get some time with Malik Willis here. Jaden Reed wasn't going to dominate the target share. Horrible offense. Not going to be startable. I don't think you can sell Jaden Reed right now anymore. Ramondre Stevenson was a sell high guy for us last week. The New England Patriots offense looks functional in week 2. I'm still very, very concerned about this Pats offense going into the future. Y'all know I actually have Stevenson in the Flock League. He's my RB2. Now, this is back-to-back weeks where I have thrown him on the trade block. I've tried to send out some offers. In my league, I can't get a low-end running back 1 price tag. I can't get a high-end RB2 price tag for him. So I'm kind of stuck with them, but I still think that the concerns with this Patriots offense are there. Aaron Jones was that sell-high player. I mean, the Vikings look phenomenal at the moment. Honestly, maybe you have to walk that back just a bit. Tony Pollard was the sell high guy for us last week. Looking at Pollard, he actually crushes yet again in week 2. I think a lot of that's to do with the Tajay Spears injury. But with the Spears injury, honestly, it may just open up the door for Pollard to fully take over. And then Jameson Williams was that sell high guy for us. You get 55 pass attempts from Jared Goff. So obviously Jameson has a phenomenal week 2 as well. I still stand by. I think Jameson's a wide receiver 3 rest of season. If you can sell him at a wide receiver 2 price tag, I wouldn't mind it. Well, let's go over to the guys this week. Now, everybody on this list this week will be a running back except one. I do want to mention DK Metcalf here. If you look at the Seattle Seahawks offense, it was just a complete 180 in week 2 in comparison to what you've historically had with Seattle. If you're looking at week 2, this is a team that goes out and just completely abandons the run. You have Geno Smith dropping back for 44 pass attempts, 5 carries. So you have 49 dropbacks for Geno Smith, and you get 14 carries for Zach Charbonnet. So I want to be on record real quick. If you are going to have 49 dropbacks for Geno Smith going into the future, DK Metcalf will be set up to absolutely crush. Now, obviously, this was an overtime game. Some of these numbers are a little bit inflated, but I think the main thing is when this team had no Kenneth Walker, they went, okay, well, Charbonnet will be a 3-down back for us, but Kenneth Walker is kind of the engine of this ground game. So let's skew and let's be significantly more pass happy. Plus, you actually get the ascension of Jackson Smith-Njigba, where JSN has 16 targets in this offense. And now, all of a sudden, going into the future, it does appear that JSN is going to have a significant target share here in Seattle. Now, obviously, Tyler Lockett completely fell by the wayside. Tyler Lockett was absolute cheeks against New England. Lockett only had 2 targets, and going into the future, Lockett doesn't look viable in fantasy. But honestly, I don't think Tyler Lockett is going to be an absolute 0 going into week 3, going into week 4, going into week 5. I do think that Lockett is going to have a role here. So I think you have 2 top receivers with Metcalf, JSN. You have a wide receiver 3 sneaking in some targets. And ultimately, I don't expect this offense to continue to give Geno Smith 49 dropbacks every single game. So I think the passing volume is going to come down here dramatically. I think Metcalf's maybe going to get squeezed a little bit for his target share. I have Metcalf as a low-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. I have him right behind DJ Moore, behind Chris Godwin. I'm directly ahead of Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, and Jalen Waddle. If you could sell DK Metcalf for a wide receiver like DJ Moore, if you could pivot up from DK Metcalf and go get a wide receiver that you think has a little more upside like Mike Evans, I actually wouldn't mind you making a move like that either. Now, going over to what we have with our next player, we are going to be looking at a running back that was set up to crush last week because of a phenomenal matchup. And he looks like going into the future, that may not be the case. J.K. Dobbins. Now, I honestly did not expect to throw J.K. Dobbins on this list. J.K. Dobbins has been one of the largest risers in fantasy football for the right reasons. This is a rush-first offense. Dobbins looks like he has 100% of the athleticism back. You saw back in his rookie season that J.K. Dobbins can be one of the most efficient running backs in the entire NFL from a per-touch perspective. So I have vaulted J.K. Dobbins all the way up from being that super late round target / waiver wire ad to being a top 24 running back in my rest of season rankings. I have J.K. Dobbins right behind David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, and I'm directly ahead of Zach Moss, Jonathan Brooks, and Naji Harris. So I want to give Dobbins his flowers. If you took Dobbins in one of the last rounds this year, if you picked him up off the waiver wire, you probably made the best fantasy football move that was possible in the late rounds this season. 100% Dobbins, phenomenal value. Now, going through and trying to project out what we're going to get from J.K. Dobbins into the future, this is a running back that it's gross to say, but he is splitting a backfield here. Like if we look at this past week, you did have 18 carries for Gus Edwards. Now, of course, you have 44 total rush attempts for this offense in comparison to 20 Justin Herbert completions. And this is going to be the name of the game for this Los Angeles Chargers team, right? I mean, this is what we knew coming into the season. They wanted to run the ball, and play good defense and win games that way. And yes, in week 1, when you go up against the Raiders and the Raiders score 10 points, you're able to do just that. In week 2, when you go up against the Carolina Panthers and the Carolina Panthers score 3 points, you're able to do just that. You're able to have 44 rushing attempts in a single game. And Dobbins, in the limited touches that he has been arguably the best running back in the NFL so far from an efficiency perspective. Off of the 27 carries, he has had 266 rushing yards, multiple rushing touchdowns. It has been phenomenal. But Dobbins has had arguably the 2 best matchups you could have possibly asked for. Going into the future here, if you look at how current sportsbooks are projecting out this Los Angeles Chargers offense, they are not projecting it to be one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, this week, obviously, it's a very, very tough matchup going up against the Steelers, but you actually have the Los Angeles Chargers projected to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL with an implied team total of 17.5 points. Now, obviously, Justin Herbert is dealing with an injury, and if Herbert does miss any time, this offense is just going to crater that much more. But I think we are going to see the regression from an efficiency perspective for J.K. Dobbins. I think it's going to have much tougher matchups, while at the same time, maybe it's not just going to be in a spot where the Chargers are dominating the game from start to finish as they have through the first 2 weeks. And if we look at the receiving usage for J.K. Dobbins has had 4 receiving yards this entire season. So coming off a 2-week stretch of the best efficiency in the NFL with regression for this offense baked into the future, I would love to pivot off of Dobbins and go get a high-end wide receiver. Go get someone like Brandon Ayuk. And I know it's crazy to say that, but I'm telling you right now, I answered maybe 50 J.K. Dobbins trade questions in the live stream last night. And those were the price tags. People are trading J.K. Dobbins for phenomenal options like Ayuk. Now, as we go over to our next running back, I actually really like one of these pick'ems on Underdog of fewer than 89.5 total yards for Kareem Williams. Full transparency, I drafted Kyron in a lot of Underdog drafts. Obviously, I don't have him in the Flock League, but I really am rooting for Kareem Williams going into the future. The issue with this is the situation, which I think will show up this week against the Niners, which is why I'm taking fewer than 89.5 rushing yards on Underdog. But also, I would definitely pair that up with one of the promos that they have on Underdog, such as the CeeDee Lamb free pick, more than less than half a total yard this week. And if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you're actually going to get an additional free pick. If you sign up before Thursday, it'll be Aaron Rodgers, more than less than half a total yard. If it's after Thursday, it'll be a player like that for the Sunday games. But regardless, I've been using those promos and I'm actually up $300 so far this season on Underdog. You can find that link in the description and comment section. And if you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you're going to be getting that free pick that we talked about. And you will get a free team review in a live stream that we are doing every single night on this channel. But moving over to Kareem Williams, looking at the efficiency so far this season, it has been the exact opposite of what you've seen with J.K. Dobbins. Kareem Williams has been in situations where the Rams have been pretty much trailing the entire game start to finish, and Kareem has had 30 rushing attempts for a total of 75 rushing yards. Now, of course, His fantasy day has been saved based off the fact that he has the red zone role. He's had 2 rushing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. And at the same time, he has a receiving role where he has had 7 receptions through the first 2 weeks as well. So Kareem Williams, if you're just looking at his points scored per game, actually looks pretty intriguing. Now, the issue is, if you're going to go over and look at the Los Angeles Rams and try to project this team out going into the future, it is extremely difficult to see upside. I mean, right now, just going ahead, I'm not an injury expert, but looking at this laundry list that you have, we have Puka Nacua on the IR, Tyler Higbee, PUP, Joe Noteburn, IR, KT Leviston, IR, Connor McDermott, IR, Steve Avila, IR, Jonah Jackson, IR. That is a total of 5 offensive linemen currently on the IR for the Los Angeles Rams. That is their top 2 weapons as receivers. So you can look at this one of 2 ways. You can say, well, Kareem Williams is now going to get absolutely everything in this offense, which probably he will. But the overall offense is going to be so much worse that it's going to be significantly tougher for them to pick up first downs, have trips to the red zone, and actually score the ball and give Kareem Williams touchdown opportunities. If you go ahead and look at their implied team total this week, according to sportsbooks, the Rams are projected out to score about 17.5 points going up against the Niners. So Kyron is one of the very few true 3-down running backs in the NFL. He is a workhorse. He's been phenomenal, but he's always an injury concern. The Rams are collapsing. They're 0-2 with pretty much their entire offense on the IR. This could get really ugly, really quick, starting this week, or really starting last week. And if we can pivot instead to a running back like Alvin Kamara, pivot over to a running back like Jonathan Taylor, I think it would be an absolute no-brainer, where obviously Kyron has larger workloads, but at the same time will just be less efficient with them because of his offense. Now, going over to what we have with our next running back, I want to be on record here real quick. Devon Anan looks like he would have been the best pick in all of fantasy football this year. If you took Devon Anan in round 2 of underdog drafts, I applaud you. Oh my gosh, I wish I was taking him in round 2. Sadly, I didn't. Instead, I was taking him in round 3 when he was there, but never really got him in round 2. If you were taking him in rounds 3, 4, 5 of your regular fantasy football league, I applaud you. Clearly, with hindsight, that was the best pick you possibly could have made. We've seen the absolute nuts play out with Devon Anan, where he's had 14 receptions for 145 receiving yards this season. He's had 2 total touchdowns, 265 total yards through the first 2 weeks, and getting you those 14 receptions is an absolute cheat code in a full PPR format. Achan's been phenomenal. Everybody that was all in on him, y'all did great. Super happy for you. I am a little bit worried going into the future, though. This is a very similar situation to what we just had with Kareem Williams, where the issue is not with Achan himself. He clearly looks like he's one of the most talented running backs in the entire NFL, maybe the most electric running back in the NFL, and he's developed as the receiver, which is going to help him out a ton. But it's going to be the situation changing going into the future. When you have no Tua Tagovailoa, this does project out to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. If we go ahead and look at how sportsbooks are projecting out this offense this week against Seattle, they're currently projected to score about 17.5 points, which will cap the overall touchdown upside, obviously, you get from all these players in Miami. On top of this, obviously, while we saw a career high 29 opportunities for Devon Anan last week, and he looked unbelievable on Thursday night, Raheem Mostert did not play that game. And it does sound like Raheem Mostert is going to be good to go going into the future. He was at practice today on Wednesday. Now, do I think Raheem Mostert has any shot to be the... No, of course. Raheem Mostert has a 0% chance to be the running back 1 here. A 0% chance. And Achan's still going to have a phenomenal role as a pass catcher. But if Mostert comes in and he just takes 8 of these opportunities, he takes 9, 10 of these opportunities, and we see Achan come back down to a more reasonable 18 touches per game, which is still great, that could knock the volume, while at the same time, the efficiency may be knocked because of the loss of Tua, and this now projecting out to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Now, because of his receiving role, I'm still very high on him. He's still my running back 5 rest of season. Honestly, if it wasn't for all the injuries, I think you could put Achan all the way up at maybe being the 4th or 5th most valuable player in fantasy football if it wasn't for the situation getting much worse. So I don't know how actionable this is in terms of like, I'm not trading Achane for like Nico Collins. I would need a player like Justin Jefferson in return. But if you can find a league mate that is so excited based off what happened Thursday night, I think you could pivot off to that elite receiver like Jefferson. But I do want to obviously give the flowers to everybody who drafted Achane this year. Y'all were so damn right. And it should have played out where Achane was a top 3 back this year. It just does not look likely now with the situation. Now, Naji Harris will be our next running back. I mean, RIP Naji Harris drafters for sure. I mean, if you look at Naji, I actually moved him down to being a high-end RB3 in our rankings. He's the RB26 for me now over there on the site. We have him directly behind Zach Moss, Jonathan Brooks. I'm directly ahead of Brian Robinson and DeAndre Swift. With Naji Harris, the main thing that you're seeing here is just the reemergence of Jaylen Warren. Not as Jaylen Warren, the running back one in this offense, but Jaylen Warren in terms of, a committee back that is going to have a decent amount of snaps, will have a decent amount of opportunities. Jaylen Warren did play 35 snaps in comparison to Naji Harris at 35 this week. Jaylen Warren ran more routes out of the backfield, 11 compared to Naji Harris at 8 this week. Now, obviously, Naji has the majority of the opportunities. He has 17 carries in this offense, which is nice to see. But the issue is when you're playing in Pittsburgh, you don't have touchdown upside. And we know, where do fantasy points actually come from? At the running back position, fantasy points come from the high value opportunities. Those are the targets out of the backfield, and those are the touches inside the 5-yard line, touchdowns and receptions. Naji Harris doesn't have access to either one of those. Jaylen Warren's going to take the receiving volume here. Najee's only had 14 receiving yards through the first 2 weeks. And at the same time, the offense has yet to crack 20 points in a single game this year. Doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon with the Vegas projections. So I think Najee's kind of like a desperation bye-week fill-in at this point, / a maybe premium handcuff if Jaylen Warren were to go down and Naji were to go up to seeing 80% of this backfield, then obviously he could be very, very strong in fantasy. And then our next running back will be somebody that was a sell-high guy from us coming into the season. Derrick Henry, I'll be brief. I understand. Yes, we've said it 1,000 times. Derrick Henry has declined for 3 straight seasons, turns 31 in January, has absolutely nothing as a receiver. And we have gotten to see Derrick Henry and the usage in this game in which, one, the Baltimore Ravens are trailing from start to finish. That's the Chiefs game. And obviously, Justice Hill in that game plays more snaps. Justice Hill has like 50 plus receiving yards, and it looks like Justice Hill is going to steal a ton of those opportunities. And we've also gotten to see the Baltimore Ravens actually lead a game. Obviously, they end up losing to the Raiders, but they were winning this game the majority of the way. And we got to see what the opportunity looks like for Derrick Henry in that backfield as well, where Derrick Henry plays 30 snaps out of 65. Where Derrick Henry plays 5 fewer snaps than Justice Hill. Now, obviously, I'd way rather have Derrick Henry over Justice Hill in fantasy. That's a no-brainer. But Derrick Henry continues to have absolutely nothing as a receiver. Derrick Henry has a total of 1 reception through the first 2 weeks. Justice Hill has had back-to-back games actually out-snapping Derrick Henry, which will put a severe cap on his ceiling, particularly in a full PPR format. If I could pivot off of Derrick Henry instead to maybe a younger running back that just saw an injury in his own backfield in Travis Etienne, I think that would be a strong call. Obviously, I wish you would have just drafted Josh Jacobs instead of Derrick Henry, but if you're stuck with Derrick Henry at this point because of you drafting him, I'm looking to go for a younger back with potentially a little more upside, such as Etienne and Kenneth Walker. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for checking out the video. Do appreciate you. Of course, let me know how stupid I am in the comment section. And like I said, we are up almost $300 on Underdog picks this year. Not because I'm any good at pick 'em, but because I take advantage of the freaking promos, which you should as well. You have a free CD Lamb pick, more than less than half a total yard this week. If you're new to Underdog, you're going to get an additional free pick. Aaron Rodgers, more than less than half a total yard if you sign up before Thursday. After Thursday, it will be a different player for the Sunday night slate. But yeah, you can find that link in the description, comment section. Code FLOCK will get you those free picks, a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And Code FLOCK will also hook you up with a free team review from yours truly in a live stream that we are doing every single night. Just make sure you have an account set up on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you deposited $10 on Underdog with. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day and really hope I get to check out your team later tonight.